Hare Krishna. We are presenting this work in order to shed some lights on misconceptions concerning God, the living entities and their eternal relationships, as well as the Vedas. We shall also point out the defective statements made by Dr. Zakir Naik. This video will be presented in Adhikaranya's form, Vedic syllogisms, which consist of 5 parts. Vishaya, statement. Samsaya, the arisal of doubt in the tenability of the statement. Purva Paksha, the presentation of a view opposing the original statement. Siddhanta, determination of the actual truth by quotation from Vedic scriptures. And Saigati, confirmation of the final conclusion by quotation from Vedic scriptures. There are ultimately 3 kinds of evidences for ascertaining the truth: direct perception, logic, and the revealed scriptures. Sense perception can only perceive what is nearby and gross. As for an example, we cannot see what is behind a wall, and during the daytime, we cannot see the stars. Therefore, this proves that our senses are not perfect, and to understand the absolute with imperfect senses is simply impossible. Even when it cannot be seen by the senses, the truth can often be inferred by certain symptoms. This is the use of logic. But logic reasoning also isn't perfect. For example, one can deduct that diamonds come from earth, therefore diamonds are earth. Iron is used to cut earth, therefore I can cut a diamond with iron. Thus, using logic, one is achieving a wrong conclusion. It is by hearing from a reliable source that one can learn that actually diamond can cut iron, and not the opposite. In the modern age, people have the tendency to speculate and try to understand things by their own mental concoction. But the person who is using his own mind to try to ascertain the truth forgets that he is subjected to 4 defects. We all have imperfect senses. We all commit mistakes. We all have a propensity to cheat others, and we are all sure to be illusioned. If one does not have perfect knowledge, how can he thus teach others? That is cheating. If a child is born and does not know who his father is, only on the authority of his mother can he know who his father is. Similarly, God existed before this manifested world. Therefore, the only way to understand the cause of all causes is from the Vedas, which is the mother of all living entities.
The truths of spiritual life are inconceivable to the crippled materialistic brain. Simply by logic and philosophy, one cannot expect to properly understand them. The statements of scripture are the root of real knowledge. For the forefathers, demigods, and human race, O Lord, the Vedas are your own perfect eye. They are the best instrument for seeing what cannot ordinarily be perceived and for ascertaining the goals and means of progressive life.
We shall now continue our presentation with the first Adhikaranya. Vishaya.
The Itihasas, such as the Ramayana and the Mahabharata, as well as the Puranas, are all Vedic literatures given by God, just as the 4 Vedas and Upanishads are.
Samsaya. The Itihasas and the Puranas have been written by sage Vyasadeva, so how can we then say that they are from God? Dr. Zakir Naik will now present his opposing argument. Purva Paksha.
As far as the Hindu scriptures are concerned, the Hindu scriptures are divided into 2 types, Shrutis and Smriti. Shruti is considered to be the word of God, revelation from God. In it, you have the Vedas, you have the Upanishads. Then you have the Smriti. Smriti is considered to be written by human beings. There, you have the Itihas, Ramayana, Mahabharata, Bhagavad Gita as part of Mahabharata. Then you have the Manusmriti.
Siddhanta. In the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, it is said,
From the breath of the Supreme Being came the Rig Veda, Yajur Veda, Sama Veda, Atharva Veda, Itihasas, Puranas, Upanishads, verses, sutras, prose explanations, and Vedic commentaries.
So the Upanishads themselves are supporting the authenticity of the Puranas. A further argument can be said. There are texts in the Vedas which can be said to be the Puranas. Sentences like, from whom these beings take birth.
From that Supreme Soul, the sky came into being.
These and similar statements can be referred as Purana because they deal with the creation and annihilation.
We shall now defeat this opposing argument.
The Chandogya Upanishad states, the Itihasas and Puranas as the 5th, the Veda of Vedas. Name indeed is the Rig Veda, the Yajur and the Sama Vedas, the Atharva as the 4th, the Itihasas and Puranas as the 5th. In those verses of the Upanishad, the Puranas have been mentioned as the 5th. Therefore, it has a separate existence as the 4 original Vedas. So those slokas that are found in the Vedas cannot be said to be the Puranas since they are numbered. Shaigati. The 4 divisions of the original sources of knowledge, the Vedas, were made separately, but the historical facts and authentic stories mentioned in the Puranas are called the 5th Veda. Then he created the 5th Veda, the Puranas, and the histories from all his mouths, since he could see all the past, present, and future.
He taught the Vedas along with the 5th of their number, the Mahabharata.
If the Itihasas and Puranas were not Vedic, they would not be mentioned as the 5th, since counting involves things of the same nature. In the Atharva Veda, it is said, the Rig, Sama, Yajur, and Atharva Vedas appeared from the Supreme Lord, along with the Puranas and all the demigods residing in the heavenly planets.
Another opposing argument is that the Puranas mentioned in those Vedic verses have long been lost, and therefore those verses cannot support the authenticity of the Puranas that we have now.
By the passage of time, the message got changed. Again a new messenger came, he brought a fresh message. Again the people changed it. Again a new messenger came. It happened for many years, down the ages.
We shall now refute this argument.
In the Matsya Purana it is said, O best of Brahmanas, foreseeing that in the course of time the Puranas will be neglected, I appear as Vyas in each age and make an abridgment of them. In every Dvarpa Yoga, I divide the Purana into 18 books totaling 400,000 verses, in which form they are disseminated on this earth. But even today on the planets of the demigods, the Purana contains 1 billion verses. The purport of that original Purana is concisely incorporated into the 400,000 verse edition. Therefore, the current Puranas are an abridged version of the original Puranas that sprung at the beginning of our universe. But all the import of the original Puranas are contained in what we have today. In the Shiva Purana, it is said, the great master condensed the 4 Vedas and divided them into 4 parts. Because he separated the Vedas into parts, he is called Veda Vyas. He also condensed the Purana into 400,000 verses, although even today it contains 1 billion verses on the planets of the demigods. The names of the Puranas like Skanda or Agni only refers to their speakers. So if one says that the Puranas are not eternal, it is simply due to the appearance of their manifestation and disappearance. But from those verses it is clear that the Puranas are eternal and are even read by beings throughout the whole universe. Thus we have proven that the Puranas and Itihasas are eternal and perfect. Vishaya.
Srila Vyasadeva is a literary incarnation of God, and so his works of compilations surpass the 4 Vedas in knowledge and clarity of purpose.
Even Brahma and other demigods do not know everything Dvaipavayana Vyas knows. He understands everything known to anyone else, but some things he knows no one else can comprehend. So here it is clear that Srila Vyasadeva knows things that nobody else knows. Therefore, his writing, like the Mahabharata or the Puranas, are even more complete than the Vedas themselves. Samsaya.
The Vedas are revealed by God. How can we then say that a human being's literary works surpass the 4 Vedas and Upanishads?
Purvapaksha.
Smritis are supposed to be written by human beings. It contains the Puranas, contains the Itihas, Ramayana, Mahabharata, and all the other scriptures, etc.
Siddhanta. In this presentation, we are showing that the Puranas, as well as the Itihasas, like the Mahabharata and Ramayana, all emanated at the beginning of the universe. And throughout the ages, sage Vyasadeva condenses all the essence, all the message into shorter and shorter version for easier assimilation, since intelligence, duration of life, and memory are all decreasing. Now to call Vyasadeva a normal human being is an offense, because he is a literary incarnation of the Lord. Please understand that Krishna Dvaipayana Vyas is actually the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Narayana.
Sangati.
Bhagavad Gita, it is said, of the sages I am Vyas. Indeed, I am the compiler of Vedanta and I am the knower of the Vedas. In the Sri Vishnu Purana, it is said, then, during the period of the 28th Manu, the great master, my son Vyas, divided the 1 Vedas with 4 divisions into 4 separate books. In the same way as he, the brilliant editor of the Vedas, arranged their entire text into various books, so have other Vyasas in the past, including myself. O best of Brahmanas, you can understand that thus in each of the rotations of the cycle of 4 ages, a different Vyas organizes the branches of the Vedas. But know that Krishna Dvaipayana Vyas is the Supreme Lord Narayana himself, Who else on this earth, Maitreya, could be the author of Mahabharata? So here, on the authority of Vishnu Purana, we can understand that Vyasadeva is Lord Narayana himself. So if God comes in a human form and writes a book, how can we say that this book has been written by a mere human being?
Thus we have proven the divinity of Srila Vyasadeva. If Vyasadeva knows things which no one else knows, why has he written different Puranas in which the worship of different demigods are promoted, and in which are found statements that seem to go against the four Vedas? Why wouldn't he simply give us the highest truth? Such apparent contradicting behavior suggests that Vyasadeva is a simple human being. The entire Vedic literature is meant to elevate all classes of men in respect to their different nature. One's man's nectar is another man's poison. In the beginning of the world, self-existent God revealed the Vedas, which are eternal and divine. They are the source or guides of all human activities. To expect all men to be fervent servants of God is an utopian idea. Some men want to enjoy the fruits of their labor, and others want to speculate about the absolute truth. Therefore, the Karmakanda and Jnanakanda sections of the Vedas are there respectively. Parts of the Vedas promote pious work, other parts promote the performance of sacrifice, and still other parts promote renunciation. If God is one, shouldn't the path leading to Him also be one?
If there's a contradiction in the Veda, then why follow a book which has contradiction? I know there are contradictions. If there is a contradiction, then that book is not the word of God. No book of Almighty God, if it's in its true form, can have any contradiction.
Srila Baladev Vidyabhushana states in his commentary on the Vedanta Sutra, as for the various fruitive results, such as the attainment of rain, a sun, or residence in the celestial material planets, that are offered to the followers of the Karmakanda rituals in the Vedas, these benefits are offered to attract the minds of ordinary men. When ordinary men see that these material benefits are actually attained by performing Vedic rituals, they become attracted to study the Vedas. By studying the Vedas, they become able to discriminate between what is temporary and what is eternal. In this way, they gradually become averse to the temporary things of this world, and they come to hanker after Brahman. In this way, it may be understood that all the parts of the Vedas describe the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Those statements of scriptures promising fruitive rewards do not prescribe the ultimate good for men, but are merely enticements for executing beneficial religious duties, like promises of candy spoken to induce a child to take beneficial medicine. Persons with perverted intelligence do not understand this actual purpose of Vedic knowledge, and instead propagate as the highest Vedic truth the flowery statements of the Vedas that promise material rewards. Those in actual knowledge of the Vedas never speak in that way. The entire Vedic knowledge is like a staircase which gradually leads human beings towards the highest end. In order to rise in this ladder of knowledge, one must give up his previous standpoint to assimilate higher teachings. Anyone whose work is not meant to elevate him to religious life, anyone whose religious ritualistic performances do not raise him to renunciation, and anyone situated in renunciation that does not lead him to devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead must be considered dead, although he is breathing. From a narrow point of view, there might appear some contradicting statements in the Vedas, but the purpose of such contradictions are understood by one who understands the ultimate truth of the Vedas. All purposes that are served by the small pond can at once be served by the great reservoirs of water. Similarly, all the purposes of the Vedas can be served to one who knows the purpose behind them. Also, a general rule and a specific exception to that rule need not to contradict each other. There is scope for each. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the highest authority on Vedic knowledge and the inaugurator of the Sankirtana movement, states, "Conch shells and cow dung are nothing but the bones and the stool of some living entities, but according to the Vedic version, they are both considered very pure." His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada comments on this verse. According to Vedic principles, bones and dung are generally considered very impure. If one touches a bone or stool, he must take a bath immediately. That is the Vedic injunction. Yet the Vedas also enjoin that a conch shell, although the bone of an animal, and cow dung, although the stool of an animal, are very sanctified. Even though such statements appear contradictory on the basis of the Vedic version, we still accept the fact that conch shells and cow dung are pure and sanctified. The Vedic statements are self-evident. Whatever is stated there must be accepted. If we interpret according to our own imagination, the authority of the Vedas is immediately lost. We have thus proven that there are no contradictions in the Vedas. Because the Puranas are presenting the Vedic conclusion, they are more important than the Vedas, and of all Puranas, the Bhagavad Purana is the best. The four Vedas and Upanishads are read and accepted as the highest authority by most Vedic scholars. How is it then that the Puranas are considered higher?
Veda is the most authentic book amongst all the Hindu scriptures. Even Bhagavatam is not part of the Vedas. The Shruti is superior than the Smriti. No Smriti can go against the Veda. If it goes against the Veda, we reject the Smriti.
In the Narada Purana it is said, O lovely one, I consider the message of the Puranas more important than that of the Vedas. Without doubt, all of the Vedas are given a firm foundation in the Puranas. Anyone who disrespects the Puranas will have to take his next birth as an animal. Even if he is very self-controlled and peaceful, he will achieve no good destination. So here it is said clearly that the Puranas are even higher than the Vedas. In the Skanda Purana, we find a statement, O best of Brahmanas, I consider the purport of the Puranas as unquestionable as the Vedas themselves. Without doubt, all the Vedas are given a firm foundation in the Puranas. Sometime in the past, the Vedas became afraid that these people are going to distort my meaning because they are inadequately trained in proper hearing. But at that time, the Itihasas and Puranas came forward to give the Vedas an unquestionable foundation. What cannot be found in the Vedas, O Brahmanas, is found in the Smritis, and what cannot be located in either is clearly described in the Purana, O Brahmanas. One who knows the Vedas along with their supplements and the Upanishads but does not know the Puranas is not really learned.
Even though we have thus settled the question of the Puranas' authoritativeness, most people find it difficult to understand them, since many of their original texts are not completely available, and because for the most part they promote the worship of a variety of deities. On what basis, therefore, should one accept the Srimad Bhagavatam as the highest of them all?
In the Padma Purana, it is said, among all the Puranas, Srimad Bhagavatam is the best. In every line, great sages glorify Lord Krishna in various ways.
Without a doubt, Srimad Bhagavatam is directly Lord Krishna. The Skanda Purana states, Srimad Bhagavatam and the personality of Godhead are always of the same nature, possessed of eternal existence, full knowledge, and complete bliss. In the Brahma Vaivarta Purana we find, of all the Puranas, I am the best and supreme Srimad Bhagavatam.
So here it is clear that Srimad Bhagavatam is the highest of all literature.
After bringing all the Puranas to light and compiling the Vedanta Sutra, the powerful sage Vyas was still not satisfied. I am feeling incomplete, though I myself am fully equipped with everything required by the Vedas. This may be because I did not specifically point out the devotional service of the Lord, which is dear both to the perfect beings and to the infallible Lord. Sri Narada said, You have not actually broadcast the sublime and spotless glories of the personality of Godhead. That philosophy which does not satisfy the transcendental senses of the Lord is considered worthless. Therefore, Srila Vyasadeva then manifested as a product of mature meditation this Bhagavatam, the natural commentary on his own sutras. The Garuda Purana states, The meaning of the Vedanta Sutra is present in Srimad Bhagavatam. The full purport of the Mahabharata is also there. The commentary on the Brahma Gayatri is also there and fully expanded with all Vedic knowledge. Srimad Bhagavatam is the Supreme Purana, and it was compiled by the Supreme Personality of Godhead in his incarnation as Vyasadeva. There are 12 cantos, 335 chapters, and 18,000 verses. Let us take a closer look at this verse. Saying that the Bhagavatam contains the meaning of the sutras of Vedanta means that it serves as their natural commentary. The Vedanta Sutra is explained by the author himself in the Srimad Bhagavatam. It contains the full purport of Mahabharata means that in it is ascertained the meaning of the Mahabharata, whose characteristics are as stated. It is said that the Mahabharata establishes the purport of all scriptures. Once long ago, Vyasadeva made the demigods headed by Brahma, and all the sages placed both the Mahabharata on one side of a scale and all the Vedas on the other. They found that the Mahabharata weighed more. Because it is so great, Mahadvat, and so weighty, Bharavadvat, it is called Mahabharata. O Lord Brahma, in this great work I have included the secret essence of all the Vedas and of all other scriptures as well. It explains in detail the Vedas' 6 corollaries and the Upanishads. It can thus be understood that all the glories of the Mahabharata are also parts of the Srimad Bhagavatam. That the commentary of the Brahma Gayatri is also there means that the essence of the Gayatri mantra is spoken of, which is meditation on the Supreme Lord. The importance of the Bhagavatam in the current age of Kali is stressed in the following verses. What is the use of collecting hundreds or thousands of other scriptures if someone living in this Kali Yoga does not have the scripture Bhagavatam in his home? How can he be considered a Vaishnava? In fact, in Kali Yoga, a Brahmana who does not have the scripture Bhagavatam in his home is worse than a dog eater. O Brahmana Narada, wherever in Kali Yoga the scripture Bhagavatam is present, there Lord Hari will go along with the 13 principal demigods. The supremacy of the Bhagavad Purana is clearly established, but still, since Srila Vyasadeva has given us other Puranas, shouldn't we also study those? Other Puranas are there simply for those who, out of obstinacy, do not accept the study of the Bhagavatam as their life and soul. Any one human being who daily reads with devotion even one verse of the Bhagavatam, O sage, will obtain the benefits of studying all 18 Puranas. The supreme position of Srimad Bhagavatam above all scriptures has thus been established on the basis of Sastra. Its glories will continue to expand in this dark age of Kali as we can see the prophecy unfold before our eyes. This Bhagavad Purana is as brilliant as the sun, and it has arisen just after the departure of Lord Krishna to his own abode, accompanied by religion, knowledge, etc. Persons who have lost their vision due to dense darkness of ignorance in the age of Kali shall get light from this Purana.
The Vedas are directly manifested by the Supreme Lord and are eternal and perfect. They are therefore the only means of ascertaining the absolute truth. One might think, if the Vedas are eternal, why are there other scriptures on earth?
So that's the reason previously he sent messages which were there but not complete. That's the reason all the messages that came before the Quran, they were meant for a particular group of people and meant to be followed for a particular time period.
Dr. Zakir Naik here makes a few statements. He says that the Vedas were meant for a particular time period and for certain people, and that they were not complete, that still some things had to be further revealed. The personality of Godhead is perfect and complete, and because he is completely perfect, all emanations from him, such as this phenomenal world, are perfectly equipped as complete wholes. Whatever is produced of the complete whole is also complete in itself. Because he is the complete whole, even though so many complete units emanate from him, he remains the complete balance. In the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, it is said,
From the breath of the Supreme Being came the Rig Veda, Yajur Veda, Sama Veda, Atharva Veda, Itihasas, Puranas, Upanishads, verses, sutras, prose explanations, and Vedic commentaries.
So since the Vedas emanated from the Supreme Lord, they must be complete. In the beginning of the world, self-existent God revealed the Vedas, which are eternal and divine. They are the source or guides of all human activities. The Vedas are eternal, and it is stated that they are the guides for all human beings. This involves material activities and spiritual activities. Veda means knowledge. If one wants to know when the Vedas sprung, one must find out when knowledge started. To show that the Vedas are complete, we will show how they have already guided human beings for the present age, which is the Kali Yoga. In the Srimad Bhagavatam it is said, whatever result was obtained in Satya Yoga by meditating on Vishnu, in Treta Yoga by performing sacrifices, and in Dvarpa Yoga by serving the Lord's lotus feet, can be obtained in Kali Yoga simply by chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. The Kali Yoga has started 5,000 years ago with the departure of Lord Shri Krishna. So it is already stated that for the Kali Yoga, this age, the chanting of the holy name of the Lord is the prescribed method. In the Kali Santarana Upanishad it is said, at the end of the Dvarpa Yoga, Narada went to Brahma and addressed him thus, O Lord, how shall I, roaming over the earth, be able to overcome the effects of Kali Yoga? Brahma replied thus, you have asked well. Listen to that which all the Vedas keep secret and hidden, through which one may cross the ocean of mundane existence, samsara, during Kali Yoga. It is through the mere recitation of the names of the primeval personality of Godhead, Lord Narayana, that one transcends the evil effects of the Kali Yoga. Narada asked again, what are those names? Brahma replied, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. These 16 names destroy the negative effects of Kali. No better mean than this is to be had in all the Vedas. So here from the Upanishad, from Lord Brahma himself, we receive the hidden mystery behind all the Vedas. It is to chant the holy name of the Lord. So since the prescription is already given at the beginning of the universe concerning the current age, why would there need to be new message and new message? Everything is already given. But the fact is that Vedic culture does not follow prophets. It follows acharyas. And the acharyas simply repeat the original statement made by the Supreme Lord himself. Therefore, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has says,
in this age of Kali, there is no other means, no other means, no other means for self-realization than chanting the holy name, chanting the holy name, chanting the holy name of Lord Hari.
This Sankirtana movement of chanting the holy name, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, has been started 500 years ago by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So even if one takes Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as a prophet, because he has appeared after Prophet Muhammad, we should follow him. So that argument also does not stand. In fact, 500 years ago, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu predicted that a great personality would appear and spread the holy names of the Lord all over the world. At that time, the Sankirtana movement was only found in some places in India, especially Bengal. But in the recent age, we have seen His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada has carried out this prophecy made by Lord Chaitanya. He left India and propagated this chanting of the holy name of the Lord throughout the entire world. And now in all great cities and more towns and villages around the world, we hear the chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. This is a clear proof that whatever is in Sastra is perfect and eternal and shall come to pass.
So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who is our creator, He knows very well that human being would not be able to grasp the complete message of the Quran if it was revealed earlier. So that's the reason previously He sent messages which were there but not complete because human being could not understand, could not grasp.
The argument of Dr. Zakir Naik that the Vedas were meant for a particular type of people that could not grasp a higher message is completely foolish. The Vedas in the beginning were revealed into the heart of Lord Brahma.
Because I desire liberation, let me surrender unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who first enlightened Lord Brahma in Vedic knowledge through Lord Brahma's heart. The Lord is the original source of all enlightenment and spiritual advancement.
So how can the creator of this universe be unqualified to receive higher knowledge?
The Srimad Bhagavatam was spoken to Brahma by the Supreme Lord himself. Brahma then narrated it to his son, Srimad Narada Muni, who is considered the greatest devotee in the universe. Narada Muni in turn narrated the Bhagavatam to Shri Vyasadeva, whose glories have been previously described. Vyasadeva spoke it to his son, Sukadev Goswami, who then spoke it to Maharaj Parikshit, the world's emperor. In that meeting was Suta Goswami, who later retold the Bhagavatam to the assembled sages in the forest of Naimisharanya. All great acharyas have accepted Srimad Bhagavatam as the highest of all literature and have written elaborate purports for the benefit of the entire human race.
Plus, in the Bhagavad Gita, Lord Shri Krishna says, saintly kings that are saints at the same time, were met to receive this knowledge. The blessed Lord said, I instructed this imperishable science of yoga to the sun god, Vivashvan, and Vivashvan instructed it to Manu, the father of mankind, and Manu in turn instructed it to Ikshvaku. Here the Lord said this indestructible, imperishable science of yoga. It is not meant to be followed until a particular time and then stopped and something else comes in. No, it is eternal and perfect. See here that he spoke to the sun god. How can the sun god not be qualified to receive the highest knowledge? And the sun god spoke to his son. And in this way it came to Manu, who is the progenitor of mankind. And again the knowledge has been repeated. The same thing has been repeated 5,000 years ago to Arjuna on the battlefield of Kurukshetra.
Vedic literature is like a bottle of honey. In order to taste its sweetness, one must approach a bona fide spiritual master in disciplic succession. There are many Vedic commentaries on different Vedic scriptures. In order to bypass this confusion, shouldn't we instead only read the original text?
Brahma Samhita is the commentary by Brahma.
Don't quote commentary, quote the text.
But in order to understand the Vedas, there is a way. Acharya Upasana. One must follow the instructions given by the Acharya. In the Mundaka Upanishad, it is said, Tadvigyanartam sagurum eva bhikachchet samit panihi shrotriyam brahmanishtam. In order to learn the transcendental science, one must approach the bona fide spiritual master in disciplic succession, who is fixed in the absolute truth. In the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, it is said, O Maitreyi, one should directly perceive the Supreme Personality of Godhead by hearing about him from a bona fide spiritual master. In this way, one can properly understand his position and constantly meditate upon him. One can further argue, why then are there so many understandings of the Vedic conclusion? These others make use of small collections of ideas they have carved out from the infinite sky of Vyasadeva's mind. They take advantage of these borrowed ideas like people who pick up things discarded from someone else's house. So people concoct their own ideas. They read the Vedas and they take bits and pieces from here and there, and thus support their own mental speculation. A foolish person who manufactures his own ways and means through mental speculation and does not recognize the authority of the sages who lay down unimpeccable directions is simply unsuccessful again and again in his attempts. My dear Nachiketa, simply by logic one will never be able to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but only by the descriptions of a realized spiritual master. From all these quotes we can understand why there are so many so-called conclusions on the Vedic scriptures. Actually, the conclusion is one. The supreme science was thus received through the chain of disciplic succession, and the saintly kings understood it in that way. But in course of time, the succession was broken, and therefore the science as it is appears to be lost. One simply has to follow the authority of the acharyas in one of the 4 sampradayas.
Unless one is initiated by a bona fide spiritual master in the disciplic succession, the mantra he might have received is without any effect. For this reason, 4 Vaishnava disciplic successions, inaugurated by Lakshmi Devi, Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, and the 4 Kumaras, will appear in the holy place of Jagannath Puri and purify the entire earth during the age of Kali.
Vedic culture follows the parampara system, and there are 4 such parampara.
Lord Brahma chose Madhavacharya to represent his disciplic succession. In the same way, Lakshmi Devi chose Ramanujacharya, Lord Shiva chose Vishnu Swami, and the 4 Kumaras chose Nimbarkacharya.
In the Svedashvatara Upanishad, it is said, "Only unto those great souls who simultaneously have implicit faith in both the Lord and the spiritual master are all the imperts of the Vedic knowledge automatically revealed." So to understand Vedic knowledge, one must first of all be initiated by a bona fide spiritual master and have unflinching faith in him.
Therefore, the Chandogya Upanishad says, "One who has taken shelter of the Acharya knows things as they are."
We have thus shown how the Vedas are the only means to understand the absolute truth, and the only means to understand the Vedas is through the parampara system. Lord Kalki is the Supreme Personality of Godhead who is to appear at the end of Kali Yoga. There are many persons who claim that the Kalki avatar has already come, or that he is at the present moment on the earth.
As we have seen in the beginning of this presentation, the Puranas emanated at the beginning of our universe. All histories are therefore spoken before their actual occurrence. The Kalki Purana speaks of the pastimes of the Lord that are yet to come.
You know, when you read the Kalki Purana, he is prophesied as the Kalki avatar. And it's mentioned there that his father's name will be Vishnu Yas. Vishnu means God, Yas means servant, servant of God. If you translate to Arabic, it's Abdullah. The father of the name of Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was Abdullah.
Dr. Zakir Naik purposefully avoids mentioning that Vishnu Yasa is a Brahmana who fostered his son Kalki in taking Brahmanical initiation, studying the Vedas, and performing Vedic sacrifices for the pleasure of Lord Hari.
My dear child, I will now arrange for your sacred thread ceremony so that you can chant the Gayatri mantras and begin your study of the Vedas. Being thus ordered by his father, Lord Kalki very humbly said, "I will worship Lord Hari by performing the Rajasuya, Ashvamedha, and other sacrifices which are prescribed in the Karmakanda sections of the Vedas, so that everyone can advance in the 3 objectives of life: religiosity, economic development, and sense gratification."
His mother's name will be Sumati. Sumati means serenity, peaceful. If you translate Arabic, it means Amina. The name of the mother of Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was Amina.
Dr. Naik has also cunningly evaded to point out Mother Sumati's worship of cows and Brahmanas, as well as her Vedic funeral.
Having received the all-glorious Lord Vishnu, the master of the 3 worlds, as her son, Mother Sumati's happiness knew no bounds. She invited the Brahmanas and gave them each 100 cows in charity. The chaste wife Sumati embraced the dead body of her husband and thus entered his funeral pyre. The denizens of the heaven praised her very highly for this courageous act.
Be born in a city by the name Sambala. Sambala means a place of peace and serenity. That is Makkah.
The description of the opulence and Vedic society of the city of Sambala clearly shows that it is in the city of Mecca.
The entire village should be bedecked with precious jewels and crystal. Do not hesitate to display your full expertise in the art of architecture. The village was 7 yojanas across and inhabited by members of all 4 varnas. Throughout the village were memorial columns made of white marble that shone like the sun.
The last and final avatar, the last and final messenger in Hinduism is Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him.
Dr. Zakir Naik has cleverly tried to juggle some words in order to prove that the final avatar is actually Prophet Muhammad. But Lord Kalki is not a prophet, he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
When the lotus-eyed Lord heard this request, he immediately assumed the 2-armed form. His father and mother were certainly struck with wonder upon seeing this wonderful pastime of the Lord.
As we can see, just like in the appearance of Lord Shri Krishna, he appeared also in his Vishnu form in front of his parents, and then took the form of a little baby. So the Lord comes at his own free will to reestablish Dharma, eternal religion.
May the Supreme Personality of Godhead, having assumed the form of Kalki, who is the super soul of all living entities, establish the eternal principles of religion. Having appeared in a family of Brahmanas, he will annihilate the sinful kings of Kali Yoga by the fire of the poison emanating from his ferocious serpent-like hands while riding on the back of an excellent horse of the Sindh province. In this way, he will protect the pious and re-establish Satya Yoga.
From this verse, we can understand that Kalki is not some prophet or another personality, none other than the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
The Kali Yoga lasts for 432,000 years. The Kali millennium is 1,200 years of the demigods. This age of Kali started 5,000 years ago after the departure of Lord Krishna. The Supreme Lord, Vishnu, is brilliant like the sun and is known as Krishna. When he returned to the spiritual sky, Kali entered this world, and people then began to take pleasure in sinful activities. Lord Kalki will be coming at the end of Kali Yoga. When the Supreme Lord has appeared on the earth as Kalki, the maintainer of religion, Satya Yoga will begin, and human society will bring forth progeny in the mode of goodness.
He will appear at the end of Kali Yoga to re-establish the Satya Yoga. Now, to know if the present age now is the Kali Yoga or Satya Yoga, we can take a look at a few descriptions.
In the second quarter of Kali Yoga, people will no longer chant the holy names of Lord Krishna. In the third quarter of Kali Yoga, there will be an upsurge of unwanted population. And in the final quarter of Kali Yoga, there will be only one class of human being, because God consciousness will have been long forgotten.
At the present moment, we have passed 5,000 years in the Kali Yoga. Therefore, we have not even reached the second quarter, since it is said, people will no longer chant the holy names of Lord Krishna. In the age of Satya, your 4 legs were established by the 4 principles of austerity, cleanliness, mercy, and truthfulness. But it appears that 3 of your legs are broken due to rampant irreligion in the form of pride, lust for women, and intoxication. In the modern world that we live in, everywhere there is pride, lust for women, and intoxication. Therefore, it is clear that we are in the dark age of Kali Yoga, the age of quarrel. It is impossible to say that the Prophet Muhammad is the avatar Kalki.
The only place in the Vedas where Prophet Muhammad is mentioned is in the Bhavishya Purana. Some persons claim that the Prophet Muhammad is mentioned throughout the Vedas.
In Rig Veda, book number 1, hymn number 13, verse number 3, chapter number 53, verse number 9. Book number 5, hymn number 5, verse number 2. Yajurveda, chapter number 20, verse 37. Yajurveda, chapter number 21, verse number 31.
Dr. Naik gives many more quotations arguing that they refer to the Prophet Muhammad. However, we shall focus only on the previously shown verses, since all other quotations are based on similar arguments. In these 4 verses, the word Narashamsa, praised by man, is found. Wherever Dr. Naik could find this adjective in the Vedas, he shamelessly propagated it to mean the person of Prophet Muhammad. It is important to mention that the sukta or chapters of the Rig Veda are dedicated to particular personalities like the demigods Agni, the god of fire, or Indra, the king of heaven. In many of the verses quoted by Dr. Naik, the word Narashamsa infers to the presiding deity of the chapter. This is also true for verse 113.3, who is dedicated to Agni. The 5th chapter of the 5th Mandalam or book of the Rig Veda deals with the duties of kings, of citizens, of teachers, and of householders. This 2nd verse deals with the duties of teachers and not one particular personality. The Yajur Veda contains hymns and prayers to be recited by Brahmanas during Vedic sacrificial performances. These 2 verses are part of the hymns that are to be recited during the coronation ceremony of a king. The word Narashamsa here refers to the crowned king in question. In this verse of the Rig Veda, the story of Indra defeating 20 kings and their armies is mentioned. Although the name Indra is mentioned in this chapter, and although this incident is also cited in the Vayu Purana, still Dr. Naik impudently tries to convince his audience that this refers to Prophet Muhammad. His argument being that the population of Mecca was close to 60,000 at the time that Prophet Muhammad conquered the city.
In fact, the only place in the Vedas that Prophet Muhammad is directly cited by name and that we can be sure of his identity is in the Bhavishya Purana.
Bhavishya Purana means the history which will occur in the future. Compiled 5,000 years ago, in this work we find predictions of Lord Buddha, Lord Jesus Christ, and many other personalities. It also speaks of many incidents that are yet to come. Let us now take a look at some verses describing Prophet Muhammad. After this incident, the king was accompanied by the teacher of the Mlecha Dharma named Muhammad, and Muhammad his disciples and friends. The king that is spoken of in this verse is known as Bhojaraj. He met Prophet Muhammad during his conquest of Mlecha rulers. It is important important to note that here Prophet Muhammad is mentioned as the teacher of Mlecha Dharma. The term Mlecha refers to a meat-eater who cannot follow the Vedic principles of civilized men. O king, your engagement of progressive civilization, the Arya Dharma, is certainly known as the best religion amongst all varieties of religions. Still, by the order of the Supreme Lord, I am going to execute a religion in the mode of ignorance. Here Prophet Muhammad is speaking to King Bhojaraj, acknowledging that Varna Ashram Dharma is the best type of religion. This shows that Prophet Muhammad was a man in knowledge of the value of Vedic culture. This verse also shows that for some reason he is ordered by God to propagate Mlecha Dharma, which makes Prophet Muhammad an authority appointed with a specific task. But it is understood that such religious principles are of lower grades than the ones found in Vedic civilization. We are quoting the following verse to eradicate all doubts that these verses are truly speaking of Prophet Muhammad. My followers will be known by their circumcised genitals. They will have no sikha, but will have a beard, make noise loudly, and eat all kinds of animals without observing any rituals. We have thus shown that Prophet Muhammad is only referred to in the Bhavishya Purana and nowhere else in the Vedas.
Reincarnation is a fact that is corroborated in the Vedas. Samsaya. One can then argue that in the Vedas it is very hard to find a clear statement concerning reincarnation.
The Veda speaks about Punarjanam. Punar means next, Janam means birth. Even we believe in next birth. Once we die, we'll be resurrected on the day of judgment. Same thing Veda says. Punarjanam means next life. But the scholars of Hinduism, they came out with a philosophy known as Samskara. Samskara in Hinduism, it is the cycle of birth, rebirth, birth, rebirth, birth, rebirth. This is nowhere mentioned in the Veda.
Here, Dr. Zakir Naik says that in the Vedas there's no such statement that endorses reincarnation. So although we have proven that the Puranas are superior to the four Vedas, still, in order to sustain that the Vedas do speak of reincarnation, we shall first of all start by quoting the Vedas.
The word samsara does not appear in the four Vedas, but the science of reincarnation is clearly mentioned. May I clearly see or comprehend the indestructible God through sense organs. The jiva or individual soul walks through the pathways of coming called birth and departure called death. It traverses its path with its own body, and even without it, and having covered itself with its actions, good or evil, it takes birth again and again in the various planets and forms, though it is immortal by its nature. Let us understand this verse in more details. Here is clearly mentioned that the jiva, the soul, goes through birth and death and is sometimes with a gross physical body and sometimes without, such as a ghost body. Here the laws of karma are spoken of. Having performed actions with his body, the soul creates a series of reactions that he will have to suffer or enjoy in the next body created from his pious or impious actions. This verse also instructs us of a different varieties of bodies that are to be inhabited by the spirit soul on different material planets. The soul being immortal is never created. The term birth and death applies to the body made of matter. This verse is a clear summary of samsara. The immortal soul, connate with mortal matter, moves by the desire of enjoyment. Grown with the water and food, etc., it goes to the upper and lower spheres, takes birth in upper and lower modes of existence. These mortal and immortal are associated with each other since times immemorial. They go everywhere together. It is only the learned wise men who know the nature of the soul, while unenlightened know something about unanimate matter and the body made of it, but not the immortal soul. Here again the eternal nature of the soul and the temporary nature of matter are described. Taking birth in upper and lower modes means to sometimes have a demigod body, sometimes a human body, and sometimes an animal body. The soul is immortal, and it has been in contact with the material body in different forms since time immemorial. It is then stated that only the learned and wise can understand this science, whereas unenlightened men think that the living entity has taken birth with the body. Reincarnation is also mentioned in the 10th mandala, chapter 58, text 1-12. And in the Yajurveda, chapter 19, text 47. The cycle of birth and death, which is briefly mentioned in the Vedas, is explained in the Upanishads and thoroughly expanded in the Puranas. This conditioned state of the living entity is called samsara, material existence. The Katha Upanishad states, "One, however, who has no insight, who has no control over the mind and is ever impure, reaches not that goal but returns to samsara." Samsara is therefore not the invention of some pandits, but is the conditional state in which rebellious souls are put into. To get freed from this pressure of birth, death, disease, and old age, one must surrender unto the Supreme Lord, the only deliverer of material existence. He who is the support of both the unmanifested Prakriti and the Jiva, who is the Lord of the three gunas and who is the cause of bondage, existence and liberation from samsara, is verily the creator of the universe, the knower, the inmost self of all things and their source, the omniscient Lord, the author of time, the possessor of virtues, the knower of everything. The word samsara appears more than 600 times in various Vedic scriptures. This knowledge of the living entity's cycle of birth and death is given in the four Vedas, the Upanishads, the Puranas, and indeed all Vedic scriptures. To deny this science is a sign of ignorance that puts one on the same level with animals.
In the Chandogya Upanishad, there are some verses that describes when one leaves the body, there's a specific path that he takes to go to heaven. Those verses that we're about to read follow those verses.
Having dwelt in the moon planet till the exhaustion of their pious results, they return again by the same path as they came. They come to Akasha, from Akasha to air. Having become air, they become smoke. Having become smoke, they become the white cloud. Having become the white cloud, they become the rain-bearing cloud. They then fall as rain and are born in this world as rice and barley, herbs and trees, sesamum and beans. But the release from these is more difficult, for whoever eats the food and sows the seed, they become like him only. Among them, those who have good residual results of action quickly reach a good womb, the womb of a Brahmana, or of a Kshatriya, or of a Vaishya. But those who have bad residual results of action quickly reach an evil womb, the womb of a dog, or of a hog, or of a Chandala. If then, by neither of these two paths do they go, they, as small creatures, keep repeatedly revolving through birth and death. This is the third state. Therefore, the moon planet is never filled up. Hence, one should be disgusted with this state. Here we learn that heavenly existence isn't eternal. One must come back on earth and risk taking birth as a dog or even as an insect. When they have thus enjoyed heavenly sense pleasure, they return to this mortal planet again. Thus, through the Vedic principles, they achieve only flickering happiness. My dear King Yudhishthira, when oblations of ghee and food grains like barley and sesame are offered in sacrifice, they turn into celestial smoke, which carries one to successively higher planetary systems like the kingdoms of Duma, Ratri, Krishna Paksha, Dakshinam, and ultimately the moon. Then, however, the performers of sacrifice descend again to earth to become herbs, creepers, vegetables, and food grains. These are eaten by different living entities and turn to semen, which is injected into female bodies. Thus, one takes birth again and again.
Some belief says that hell is eternal and heaven is also eternal. So, 100,000 billion years is but a spark of lightning compared to eternity. Another thing is that we say that the Lord is all-merciful. All-merciful means there's no limit to the mercy, but sending someone to hell for eternity clearly shows a limit. That is another contradiction.
Having gone through all the miserable, hellish conditions and having passed in a regular order through the lowest forms of animal life prior to human birth, and having thus been purged of his sins, one is reborn again as a human being on this earth. The personality of Godhead said, under the supervision of the Supreme Lord and according to the result of his work, the living entity, the soul, is made to enter into the womb of a woman through the particle of male semen to assume a particular type of body.
So here again it is said that if one goes to hell, it is not for eternity. He is given another chance through birth and death, through all lower species of life, until he comes to the human life, where he gets the chance again to revive his eternal relationship with God.
Any reasonable man will accept this sublime science of reincarnation, since all questions can be answered by diving one's intellect into this knowledge of the soul and the body as being two separate entities. We have thus shown the understanding of samsara to be explained throughout all Vedic scriptures. One should be intelligent enough to understand this material life as very horrible, and should only desire to go back home, back to Godhead.
We do not see, here is a Christian, here is a Muslim, here is a Hindu, here is a white man, here is a black man. No. Every living being, his duty is to understand God. This is our preaching. This is our preaching, that you are living being, you are part and parcel of Krishna. This designation that you are Hindu, you are Muslim, you are Christian, you are this, these are all designations. Actually, you are living being, part and parcel of Krishna. Therefore, your main duty is to understand Krishna.
From the highest planet in the material world down to the lowest, all are places of misery wherein repeated birth and death take place. But one who attains to my abode, O son of Kunti, never takes birth again. After many births and deaths, he who is actually in knowledge surrenders unto me, knowing me to be the cause of all causes and all that is. Such a great soul is very rare.
The Supreme Lord possesses an eternal form full of bliss and knowledge. In the Rig Veda,
the personality of Godhead Vishnu is the absolute truth, whose lotus feet all the demigods are always eager to see. Like the sun god, he pervades everything by the rays of his energy. He appears impersonal to imperfect eyes. If God has a form, wouldn't that be a contradiction to the fact that he is unlimited? A body imposes many conditions. How then can God be subjected to a limited field of activities if he is said to be infinite?
When I do research, I've come to know all the scriptures say that God has got no image, has got no photograph, no painting, no statue, no idol. Yajurved chapter 32 verse number 3, Na tasya pratima asti. Same thing is repeated in Shveta Upanishad, chapter number 4, verse number 19.
Here Dr. Naik quotes two verses containing the words Na tasya pratima asti. Although these words seem to indicate that there is no image of God, the actual meaning is that there is no material comparison to him. The Prashna Upanishad says, Saiksham chakre. The Aitareya Upanishad states, Sayakshata. He glanced over the material creation. Those two quotations show that the Lord glanced in order to create. Unless the Lord has eyes, where is the meaning of glancing? And since all material elements such as earth, water, fire were still not created, the body of the Lord is therefore not made of matter. When verses describe the Lord as having no form or no qualities, it is to show that his form and personality are spiritual and not of our mundane existence. The Supreme Lord has no material hands and feet but accepts whatever is offered to him and moves very quickly. The Supreme Person has no material ears and eyes but sees and hears everything. He is the knower of everything and he is all that is to be known. It is said that he is the best and the greatest of all persons. Material hands are limited, but the Lord's hands can accept offerings from anywhere. Similarly, his ears and eyes can hear and see everything in all phases of time. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, whose transcendental form is full of bliss, truth, substantiality, and is thus full of the most dazzling splendor. Each of the limbs of that transcendental figure possesses in himself the full-fledged functions of all the organs, and eternally sees, maintains, and manifests the infinite universes, both spiritual and mundane. The Lord, being absolute, is not different from his form, name, qualities, and pastimes. Any aspect of the Lord is also the Lord. Our senses are limited to a specific field of actions, but the Lord's senses can perform the function of any other senses. He glanced over material nature in order to manifest all living entities. A normal man requires the use of his sexual organs in order to beget children, but the Lord, being fully independent, creates in whichever way he likes. Because the Lord is unlimited and absolute, he has no equal. The statement, Na tasya pratima asti, therefore means that there is no likeness of him. No material forms can ever match the beauty of the Lord. The following verses denote such understanding. The yogi then meditates upon the beautiful face of the Lord, which is adorned with curly hair and decorated by lotus-like eyes and dancing eyebrows. A lotus surrounded by swarming bees and a pair of swimming fish would be put to shame by its elegance. Na tasya pratima asti therefore means that no material example will pay tribute to the Lord's beauty, as all such examples are sure to fall short at describing the spiritual beauty of the primeval actor. The fact that the Lord has a form and at the same time is unlimited is another facet of his opulence. All forms within our experience are material and are therefore subject to the laws of material nature. To apply the same understanding to God is to place such conditioning above the Lord and is thus illogical since everything emanates from him. The Supreme Lord walks and does not walk. He is far away but he is very near as well. He is within everything and yet he is outside of everything. His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada comments on this verse. Ordinarily, if someone can walk, it is illogical to say that he cannot walk. But in reference to God, such a contradiction simply serves to indicate his inconceivable power. With our limited fund of knowledge, we cannot accommodate such contradictions, and therefore we conceive of the Lord in terms of our limited powers of understanding. For example, the impersonalist philosophers of the Mayavad school accept only the Lord's impersonal activities and reject his personal feature. But the members of the Bhagavata school, adopting the perfect conception of the Lord, accept his inconceivable potencies and thus understand that he is both personal and impersonal. The Bhagavatas know that without inconceivable potencies there can be no meaning to the words Supreme Lord.
Just like the sun, the rays of the sun itself, and the sun god are all the sun, but it is a different understanding of the same object.
Learned transcendentalists who know the absolute truth call this non-dual substance Brahman, Paramatma, or Bhagavan.
Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan are three different features of the same absolute truth. Brahman is the impersonal feature of God. It is all-pervasive. It is everywhere, at all time, and it never changes. Paramatma is the localized feature of God. It is situated within the heart of every human being, animals, insects, all living entities, as well as within the atom. And Bhagavan is the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
The impersonal feature of the Lord called Brahman or Brahmajyoti is the bodily rays emanating from his spiritual body. In the millions and millions of universes there are innumerable planets, and each and every one of them is different from the others by its cosmic constitution. All of these planets are situated in a corner of the Brahmajyoti. This Brahmajyoti is but the personal rays of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Govinda, whom I worship. The impersonal understanding of God is therefore not the absolute truth. A spiritualist should therefore pray to the Lord to remove this Mayavadi conception from one's mind as prayed for in this verse. O my Lord, sustainer of all that lives, your real face is covered by your dazzling effulgence. Kindly remove that covering and exhibit yourself to your pure devotee. When one sees the deity of the Lord, it is to be understood that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is there. Even logically, we can understand that all material elements are expansions of the energy of the Lord. Since the Lord is supremely powerful, it is logical that he can manifest himself in his energy. The deity form of the Lord is said to appear in 8 varieties: stone, wood, metal, earth, paint, sand, the mind, or jewels.
And they believe in idol worship. So I told him, is it not mentioned in your scripture, in Bhagavad Gita, chapter number 7, verse number 20, that all to whose intelligence has been stolen by material desires, they worship demigods. That means they worship idols.
Idol worship is when one idolizes someone or something that hasn't been sanctioned by the Lord. The verse quoted by Dr. Naik speaks of the worships of demigods like Shiva or Surya. Even such worship, although material, is sanctioned by the Vedas. Such demigod worshippers receive temporary material rewards that ultimately prove useless. Men of small intelligence worship the demigods, and their fruits are limited and temporary. Deity worship is authorized by the Lord, by all Vedic literatures and all spiritual authorities. All the great sages repeatedly declare that such worship brings the greatest benefit possible in human life. This is the opinion of Narada Muni, the great Vyasadeva, and my own spiritual master, Brihaspati. O most magnanimous Lord, the instructions on this process of deity worship first emanated from your lotus mouth. Then they were spoken by the great Lord Brahma to his sons, headed by Brigu, and by Lord Shiva to his wife, Parvati. This process is accepted by and appropriate for all the occupational and spiritual orders of society. Therefore, I consider worship of you in your deity form to be the most beneficial of all spiritual practices, even for women and Shudras. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, My dear Uddhava, there is no end to the innumerable Vedic prescriptions for executing deity worship. The worship of the Lord in his Archa Vigraha is of spiritual nature and entails loving reciprocations between the worshipper and the worshipped. I am pleased by any insignificant offering made by my loving devotees, and I am certainly most pleased when nice presentations of fragrant oil, incense, flowers, and palatable foods are offered with love. The Lord, out of his causeless mercy, manifests himself in a form that his devotee can worship. God certainly doesn't need to eat, nor to be offered flowers and incense, just as a father does not need a gift from his infant child. But love is what makes such dealings sweet and relishable, a realm of loving exchange forbidden to those who foolishly think of a formless God. When a person maintains the conception that God has no form, it is due to the Lord's covering that person's intelligence. The Lord, being fully independent, reserves the right to reveal himself to whomever he so desires. I am never manifest to the foolish and unintelligent. For them I am covered by my eternal creative potency, and so the deluded worlds know me not, who am unborn and infallible. Fools deride me when I descend in the human form. They do not know my transcendental nature and my supreme dominion over all that be. One who considers the body of Krishna to be material should be driven out from all rituals and activities of the Shruti and the Smriti. And if one by chance sees his face, one should at once take bath in the Ganges to rid himself of infection. All demigods such as Brahma, Indra, Agni, and so on possess a form made of material elements and are thus created. They did not exist before this material manifestation, and they will cease to exist after the destruction of this universe. In the beginning of the creation, there was only the Supreme Personality, Narayana. There was no Brahma, no Shiva, no fire, no moon, no stars in the sky, no sun. There was only Krishna, who creates all and enjoys all. Then the Supreme Personality, Narayana, desired to create living entities. From Narayana, Brahma is born, and from Narayana, the Patriarch are also born. From Narayana, Indra is born. From Narayana, the 8 Vasus are born. From Narayana, the 11 Rudras are born. From Narayana, the 12 Adityas are born. It is from Narayana only that everything is generated, by him only that everything is maintained, and in him only that everything is annihilated. Therefore Narayana is eternally existing. Everything that exists now or will be created in the future is nothing but Narayana, who is the unadulterated deity. There is only Narayana and nothing else. Narayana is the source from whom all the universes emanate. Even Sankaracharya, the leader of the Mayavada school of thoughts, writes in his introduction of Bhagavad Gita, Narayana is not a creation of this material world, he is transcendental. Brahma, it is I, the personality of Godhead, who was existing before the creation, when there was nothing but myself, nor was there the material nature, the cause of this creation. That which you see now is also I, the personality of Godhead, and after annihilation what remains will also be I, the personality of Godhead. Lord Narayana and Lord Krishna are the same Supreme Personality, and so are all other incarnations, such as Lord Rama and Lord Narasimhadev. The Supreme Lord can expend himself in unlimited transcendental forms who are all equally powerful. The light of one candle being communicated to other candles, although it burns separately in them, is the same in its quality. I adore the primeval Lord Govinda, who exhibits himself equally in the same mobile manner in his various manifestations. O Brahmanas, the incarnations of the Lord are innumerable, like rivulets flowing from the inexhaustible sources of water. Although all forms of God are the same Supreme Lord, still Lord Krishna is the original transcendental Supreme Personality of Godhead. Mahavishnu, from whose breathing an unlimited number of universes emanate, is a plenary expansion of Sankarsana, who is a plenary expansion of Narayana. Narayana is a plenary expansion of the Chaturvyuha, and the Chaturvyuha are plenary expansions of Baladev, the first manifestation of Krishna. Brahma and the lords of the mundane worlds, appearing from the pores of hair of Mahavishnu, remain alive as long as the duration of one exhalation of the later. I adore the primeval Lord Govinda, of whose subjective personality Mahavishnu is the portion of portion. All of the above mentioned incarnations are either plenary portions or portions of the plenary portions of the Lord, but Lord Shri Krishna is the original personality of Godhead. Brahma replied, I continually glorified the Lord and meditated upon him for millions of years, and at last I was able to understand the transcendental form of the Lord as Shri Krishna, who appeared before me in the dress of a cowherd boy. Krishna, who is known as Govinda, the Supreme Godhead, he has an eternal blissful spiritual body. He is the origin of all. He has no other origin, and he is the prime cause of all causes.
There is no truth superior to me. Everything rests upon me, as pearls are strung on a thread. I am the source of all spiritual and material worlds. Everything emanates from me. The wise who know this perfectly engage in my devotional service and worship me with all their hearts.
We would like to offer our respectful obeisances unto all the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord.
We have exposed how Dr. Zakir Naik is distorting the meaning of Vedic literature in order to support his biased agenda. Such devious behavior reveals Dr. Naik to be a dishonest man who lacks social manners.
From the Shruti and Smriti we have proven that in this age of Kali, there is no other way than chanting the holy name of the Lord in order to advance spiritually. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Nam, Hare Hare. We have shown that Lord Shri Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who possesses an eternal body full of bliss and knowledge. Srila Prabhupada is the prominent Acharya. He has spread the Sankirtana movement of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu throughout the world. Please read his books to understand the absolute truth. Jai Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna.